Oh no, it is part 2 for absolutely terrible predictions. What's up guys, welcome back to Lex Alexis. So the Premier League 24-25 season concluded yesterday. It was a very fun stream to watch with you guys. It was even sweeter seeing Chelsea win and qualify for Champions League and get top 4. But today I've got to now look back at what I did nearly 8 months ago now, and I tried to predict the entire table, and I can tell you this, there are some amazing predictions, but there's some also real clangers in there, so I am not looking forward to go through the table one by one. That's part of the fun of all of these videos, but part of it is also looking at what you guys thought was going to happen in the Premier League as well. As always guys, I'm going to be publishing content as much as I can within this period. If you guys like what you see, please smash the like button. It really does help the growth of this channel. If you want to see me do more Premier League coverage and you want to see coverage for the 25-26 season, let me know in the comments down below. If you can hit the subscribe button as well, it really does help the growth of this channel. We are trying to get to 3,000 subscribers. It will be absolutely amazing if we can get there. Something I'm also going to start doing is that I'm going to shout all of you guys out who have recently subscribed to the channel. Shout outs go to Marcus Evans, Sonny Sun, Canoodle Girl, Cag Murphy, Matt K, Jamie P, Luke Van Gent, Tigers Analysis, Yuludulu11, Steve Osborne, Dune Yo 13, David Football Gamer 35, Jaheen Yet Hassan, and Ian Blades 1889. Those are the last 15 people who recently subscribed to the channel. So as always guys, it is tremendously appreciated when you subscribe to the channel. It really does not go unnoticed, and if you can share the channel too, it really does help the growth of this channel. But without any further ado, with a brand new intro by the way, get ready, let's review my predictions for the 24-25 Premier League season. So as you can see guys, on the left hand side is the official Premier League final 24-25 table. It was very unfortunate to see the 3 newly promoted teams go immediately back down to the Championship in the exact order from when they got promoted as well. Liverpool were the team that won the title in the end. They ended Manchester City's 4 consecutive Premier League titles. Arsenal again with second. It was Man City and Chelsea that finished up the top 4 places, but with a 5th place off in the Champions League place, it is Newcastle getting that final Champions League place, and Aston Villa with a very controversial moment that happened in their game against Manchester United. They miss out in the end. And some more outstanding and outlandish finishes. You've got to look at Spurs finishing 1 place above relegation. Manchester United with their lowest league finish ever. It's absolutely unbelievable. Brentford and Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest have all had amazing seasons as well. So now the bit I'm not looking forward to, I'm now reviewing my predictions. So in 20th place, I had Leicester, and that was with the assumption that they were actually going to get their points deductions. I made this video, and I think days later, they announced that Leicester weren't going to get their points deduction. So when I heard about that, I was thinking, you know what? I actually probably would not have predicted Leicester in 20th place if they didn't have it. But I could only imagine how many points they would have had if they had a points deduction. It is looking more increasingly likely that they're going to get a deduction this season, you know, the upcoming season, the 25-26 season, rather than this season, of course. But they finished, I think, on 25 points. Could you imagine how low their points total would have been if they did get a deduction? They would have been rivaling Derby County. They really would have. It's been a very bad season from Leicester. They had an okay start, not an amazing start, but a start that I probably would have expected from Leicester. Then they dismissed Steve Cooper, brought in Ruud van Nistelrooy in, and judging him from only 3 Manchester United games, and obviously he's been doing work in the Eredivisie as well. But it was just, I think, a ludicrous decision to give the managerial job to Ruud van Nistelrooy, who had only managed 3 Premier League games prior to that, and there weren't amazing performances for Manchester United when they did have Van Nistelrooy in temporary charge. Ultimately, their form with Nistelrooy was atrocious. They were really, really bad. And then towards the end of the season, they started picking up a couple of good results, but by that point, it was too little too late. They were already down and out. and it's going to be a very interesting scenario to see who they bring in. Russell Martin is currently linked pretty hotly to be the new Leicester City manager. I will be interested to see what sort of team and what sort of management style we're going to be seeing for Leicester for next season in the Championship. So you're probably expecting me to have another of the newly promoted sides finishing 19th, but I didn't. I really ballsed up here. I went for Brentford to finish 19th, and they survived. More than survived. They cracked top 10. And I'm quite annoyed with this prediction because I distinctly remember getting Brentford quite wrong last year. I actually over-egged their prediction and league position last year by quite substantially. They finished, I think, 16th last season, and they initially struggled with having Ivan Toney absent for a lot of the season. But in the end of it, they actually coped really, really well with, for this season at least, with Mbeumo, this working really, really well together here. I've got to say, Flecken in goal has been a revelation. He's actually done really, really well with his shot stopping and with his backline as a whole. Just the whole team for Brentford are really, really solid, and I clearly didn't see the individual quality man for man in their squad, and this is one of my worst predictions for this year, and Brentford have punished me for it. And I've got to say, I will certainly be a lot more cautious predicting Brentford for next season. I think certainly Brentford have proven that when things click and they don't have a lot of their players out with long-term injuries, they are a solid Premier League team, and I've got to accept that. In 18th place, I had Southampton, so I would have got 2 correct predictions if I just swapped Leicester and Southampton around. I was kind of excited to see Southampton go up to the Premier League with the style of football that Russell Martin was playing, but I think we've now learned with too many occasions now, if you're playing a really expansive, high possession-based football, a lot of the teams in the Premier League will figure you out, and that has been a harsh reality with Leicester, Southampton and Ipswich trying to play their way out with these teams from the Championship to the Prem. All three have been really tremendously exposed. I've not seen a more distant bottom 3 in recent history, probably since last season, honestly. And I think even with that, I think with the fact that Luton were at least trying to shut up shop and actually try and make things difficult for teams to break them down, I actually think made Luton a tiny bit more competitive than all 3 of them. And you can see where Luton are at the moment with now having League One football to contend with for next season. But Southampton have already made quick moves. They've got Will Steele, who will be managing his first games in England as a manager. It's going to be a very interesting appointment, but we have heard some really, really good things about Will Steele. So I'm excited to get a deeper dive to seeing his managerial style. And I do think Southampton will have the less disruption in their squad from Premier League to the Championship next season. And that could work well in their favour, but it's certainly for Leicester and Southampton a season that they'd want to forget. So obviously I had Ipswich to stay up. I couldn't have the muster to relegate them. They finished in 19th place in the end, which was a little bit disappointing for the fact that they were 18th for the majority of the season. But either way, 18th or 19th, they would have been relegated. I was 2 places out with Ipswich. And I have to say at the start of the season, I thought there was promise there that Ipswich were able to play their way and to at least make Portman Road a place where you wouldn't have got lots of wins from. But the problem is for Ipswich, they just could not muster wins. They drew a couple of times at Portman Road, but they only picked up 1 home win all season. That is embarrassing. It's more embarrassing for Chelsea that they were the only side to lose to Portman Road this season, but it is incredibly embarrassing, and that's their biggest error in their ways, Ipswich. Had they made Portman Road more of a fortress, I think they would have had the fundamentals to try and at least be a bit more competitive than what they were. They finished on 22 points in the end, which I think matches Norwich's points tally last time they were in the Prem. So they can't even say that they beat Norwich's points total. So certainly a club that's overachieved, and I think certainly the promotion for the Championship last season probably came at 1 or 2 seasons too soon from this Ipswich squad. But now they've had the Premier League experience, I am now interested to see, can they build from this? Can they improve the quality man for man in their squad and attack the Championship again and go through the 46 game slog again to go back to the Prem? I don't think it's a guarantee, but I certainly think that the players in that squad have got some very crucial experience. And I do think, in terms of the squad going into the Championship, it's a very high quality squad. I just question the mentality whether they will be able to pick themselves up. You know, Ipswich have been on a high for the past 3 years now, and it's now crashed down back to earth that they've suffered a relegation. So I will be interested to see, can they pick themselves up from this? So lots of crucial decisions are going to have to be made, and I will be interested to see how they pick themselves up for next season. 16th place, I went for Everton. I was a little bit wrong with this. They finished in 13th place rather than 16th place. So where did I go wrong here? Essentially, Everton just picked up enough crucial results when they needed to, and actually when they did dismissed Sean Dyche and got David Moyes in, they really transformed their form and did really well for themselves. They actually finished 6 points above 16th place Wolves in the end, so I was a good couple of points off, but Everton have been around that region of the table for all season, so not a terrible position, but it's not a prediction that I nailed right at all. How are Everton going to do with a brand new stadium now? That could make things a little bit difficult. I will be interested to see how much of their squad they can keep on for next season. So certainly interesting in that point of view, but I definitely think Everton have got the fundamentals to at least still be a solid Premier League outfit. Another team I really underestimated this season was Bournemouth. I predicted them in 15th. They actually finished 9th under Andre Iraola. A really good season from Bournemouth, which has ended them not only with a 9th place finish, but with an FA Cup, was it semi-final I think they went to? I mean, they lost out to Manchester City. They were really close, Bournemouth, from getting into the FA Cup final. It has been a great season, and again, just many players in that squad, which I probably just did not rate individually, but quality now, man for man. Bournemouth have a really good squad with some brilliant recruitment over the years as well. I can remember when they were promoted back in 2022, and this amount of progress they've made within that short period of time up to 2025 to be top 10 and really convincing. You've got to give a lot of credit to the board and the manager for getting the best out of these players as well. And again, I think Bournemouth has got to be another side which I just cannot underestimate. I think others would have predicted Bournemouth to be near the relegation zone, but I certainly should have pushed them up a little bit more than 15th. So yeah, little bit wrong in that part for me. Predictions just get worse. So here's my Nottingham Forest. I predicted them in 14th place, where in actual reality they jumped 7 places up from that and finished in 7th place. I can't remember anyone that would have predicted Nottingham Forest even in the top 10, let alone the top 7 and qualifying for Europa Conference League. I certainly think not Forest's assessment this season, I think when you compare it to the start, they would not have expected European football. But with the way that it's gone, where they were top 4 for basically 95% of the season, and the last couple of games has just been games where they just got tripped up on, I think just the amount of games just caught up with Forest in the end. And unfortunately, it's something I did foresee when I was still doing my weekly score predictions for the Premier League, that I thought, they're doing well for us, they're defining the odds, but eventually it's going to catch up. And when I saw them against Chelsea yesterday, it did feel that there is definite quality there. But unfortunately, when you do make things difficult for someone like Chris Wood, it is very difficult for there to be a plan B, to have another player step up and to provide a good moment of goal scoring opportunities. But I do see great progress with Nottingham Forest to get up to 7th, and I certainly think for next season, with Conference League to think about, I'm going to be interested to see how they balance the competitions, whether if Conference League will be a competition that Forest takes seriously if they do want to try and get Europa League. But certainly great stuff from Forest. They've been certainly the team that I think have surprised the most of us with their unbelievable season. Next, I predicted Wolves to finish in 13th, where in actuality they finished 16th. So this is another situation where had I swapped 2 teams around, Everton and Wolves, if I just swapped their places, that would have been another 2 correct predictions. So I don't like that I've not got a correct prediction yet, but so close in that front there. So Wolves had it tough right from the get-go. They had a very awful fixture run in at the start of the season, which I think I did mention actually in my video. And I definitely did not expect it to affect them as much as it did. They were certainly, Wolves at one stage, looking like that they were going to be dragged in this relegation battle with the bottom 3, and it looked like it was going to be a 4-team, battle for one team staying up. But Wolves made the decision to get rid of O'Neill. Victor Pereira comes in, and he did unbelievably. got a good run of form with Wolves, picked up some very crucial wins along the way, and picked up some priceless wins, and ultimately from that they actually survived a lot quicker actually than they probably were expecting themselves. I mean, ultimately the bottom three ran out of steam, couldn't keep up at all, but Wolves pulled away, and they just have that quality that can give them that edge. Al Nouri as an example, Cunha, who looks like he will be leaving Wolves to be a Manchester United player bizarrely. I do think Wolves might struggle with the absence of Cunha, but I will be interested to see if it is reported to be 62.5 million. I think Wolves have got a good opportunity to utilise that money properly to just get a little bit more quality dabbled in with throughout the squad. But certainly with the signs I've seen for Wolves, they're going to be, I think, around the region of fighting relegation for next season, unless they have a crazy transfer window and they really blow us away. But yeah, Wolves 16th. I'd say the closest that they've skirted with relegation. This is just really annoying that I've not got a correct position yet. I predicted Fulham to finish 12th. They finished in actuality in 11th, 1 point above 12th. So very, very close. And I like to think actually both Fulham and Palace had the same goal difference as well. So I believe Fulham would have finished in 12th had they just got 1 point less. So very, very fine margins. But I did predict a really sustainable season for Fulham. And actually, Fulham could have finished a lot higher than 11th if they did not lose 3 games in their last 4 at this stage of a competition. And Fulham were another side that they were doing relatively well, you know, outside of the Premier League too. And I've really, really liked for what they've done all season. I do like the attacking core within their squad. And they've got fantastic options that they can rely on. I actually think Fulham's squad is actually a little bit more deep than people are making it out to be. I am going to be interested to think about Marco Silva. I know there has been reports that he might have Saudi League clubs trying to poach him. For what I'm hearing, he's resisting them at the moment, but how long will that last? If things do start going wrong for Fulham, could he be tempted for a move away? But I feel like he's got a really good rapport with the Fulham fans, and it will be a bit silly for him if he did leave in the way that he did. And I've got to say, another very comfortable finish for Fulham is a brilliant season. I just think, certainly for next season, I think Fulham will be wanting to try and push up a little bit and at least try and crack top 10 in the league a little bit more consistently and start dreaming about European places. Coming in at 11th place, I was quite shocked that I predicted Brighton this low, honestly. I predicted them in 11th. They actually finished in 8th. They missed out on European competition and were 4 points off Nottingham Forest. And Brighton actually had really good form right to the end of the season, but they would have relied on Manchester City managing to prevent Crystal Palace winning the FA Cup, and that would have been the way that Brighton would have got Conference League football in the end. But ultimately that didn't happen. It was Crystal Palace that will be getting Europa League football in the end. So I think part of my reasoning of predicting Brighton in 11th was down to the lack of confidence in their new manager Hertzler, but he has done a decent job, and again some brilliant squad players in that squad, and certainly players that they just recruit really, really well. Brighton, they really, really do. I don't think a lot of their squad are players with Premier League experience from previous clubs per se, maybe with the main exception being Danny Welbeck, of course. But they've got such a good core squad players that they've managed to get from a very, very cheap price, but they just meld very, very, very well. They mould very well is what I meant to say. And they have got a really solid foundation, Brighton. I think they've had a couple of fantastic results. They've had a couple collapses, which I have spotted as well. So Brighton do have a knack of potentially collapsing. But as a whole, I think Brighton have had a decent season again. To finish top 10 again, Brighton are certainly pushing above their expectations for doing that. And it's another decent season. I think the only disappointment for Brighton is that they've not got European football to show for it. And at 10th place, speaking of Palace, that is the team who I predicted to finish in 10th. They finished 12th. Very frustrating again. There were only 3 points of 10th place in the end. So very, very fine margins defining Crystal Palace to not finish in the top 10. And it's actually Crystal Palace's best point scoring season. It's actually the first time they've cracked open 50 points. So on 53 points, which is a tremendous improvement for Crystal Palace. Now, I cannot forget about their first half of the season. It was dire. They were down there with the bottom promoted 3 with Wolves as well. That bottom 5 really were cut adrift from majority of other sides in that stage of the season. Palace, as soon as they managed to get the likes of Ateta returning from injury and a couple of other crucial players, they really started to turn on their form. And actually, they did have some adversities with players being out for a while. They obviously had the void of Elise leaving them, in the transfer window to Bayern Munich to contend with as well, which took a bit of time to get used to. And they did just find a way to chuck through and get results. And again, a very underrated squad, which I have, I know I've kind of put them in 10th, so I've overestimated their position, but I certainly thought Crystal Palace were going to be 10th, just down to the managerial excellence of Glasner. But I think I've certainly underestimated the value of that squad. And I certainly think Crystal Palace, with the way things are looking at the moment, they are not going anywhere near relegation at the moment. They've had over 10 consecutive seasons in the Prem now. It is unbelievable that Palace are still fighting hard. And they've got a trophy to show for it now. Their first ever major trophy in their 160 plus year history. Absolutely unbelievable season for Palace. It'll be a season that they never forget. Best point scoring season, FA Cup to show for it, Europa League next season. I gotta say, if that doesn't give you like an A+ grade for a season, I don't know what does. Well done to Crystal Palace. So coming in at 9th place, I got this team a little bit wrong. I actually got Chelsea, and I was really negative with Chelsea's chances of getting top 4. I was very unconvinced with Maresca. I was unconvinced with the transfers. I was unconvinced with the squad performances. And lo and behold, they did exceed my expectations a little bit. Now, I still think there's issues. I am still not convinced that Chelsea are the finished article, but I don't think they're expecting to be the finished article yet. And the fact they have got 4th place, they'll finish the season on 69 points, only 2 points behind Manchester City, mind you, and only 5 behind Arsenal. And a lot of people will remind Arsenal for them finishing 2nd place, they are looking like the team closest to winning, the Premier League. It's a good bit of improvement for Chelsea. And they have picked up Chelsea some really good results across the season. I would like Chelsea to be a bit more competitive against the top 6 at the moment. That's an area which I think Chelsea have slipped their standards in recent years that I would like them to improve on. But I got to say, home form has been okay for the most part. Away form was very strong at the start, was very poor in the second half of the season, but of course Chelsea won their last away game to qualify for Champions League football. So I'm happy with that. There's a chance for Chelsea to win silverware for the Conference League. The pressure is on them because basically everyone's expecting Chelsea to win. But Real Betis, we are seeing a side managed by Manuel Pellegrini, who has won a Premier League before and is, getting the best of people like Anthony, who really did not look like anywhere near the player he is playing for Real Betis now that he was for Manchester United at the start of the season. So yeah, certainly underestimated Chelsea by 5 whole positions. That's quite costly. And again, I've not got a single team in a great position yet. And you know what's scary? I've not seen Manchester United or Spurs yet. So, we're going to get some really dire predictions coming up. So, 9th place, I got West Ham. Why I predicted West Ham to finish as high as I did, I'm honestly trying to pick my brains about that. I think they had a strong transfer window, and I certainly overestimated the ability of Julian Lopetegui. The transfers were not at a good fit for West Ham personally, especially for the Lopetegui system. I just don't think they matched well at all. West Ham was slowly creeping into the bottom 4/5 conversation for relegation. But West Ham still had really good results against the teams around them, but they were still just not picking up anything against the teams above them. And ultimately, Lopetegui was dismissed. Graham Potter came in. He hasn't done an amazing job, Potter, but they have ended the season, West Ham, relatively well in the end. And because of that, they finished in 14th place. Certainly 14th. If you asked West Ham fans at the start of the season, they would think that's a terrible season. But considering that they were, I got to say, around 16th or 17th for the majority of the season, I think they would have taken 14th. But certainly a frustrating season for West Ham. They'll be wanting to do a lot better than that next season. And I think likewise with Brentford, I'm going to be very, very cautious of where I predict West Ham for next year. They just seem to go to one extreme to the next. They're either right down there in terms of the Premier League table, or they're pushing for European places. This is when the laughing starts. I did, to be fair, predicting Manchester United in 7th and not the top 6 or the top 4, which I know some people have done. So my points accrued for Manchester United in the end was 8 points. That's actually not as bad as Brentford's prediction, strangely enough. So I was thinking I had a complete mare of Manchester United, and it's ended up, it's been a bad prediction, but somehow, that I've actually done predictions worse than that in the lead up to this. So Manchester United, clearly a lot of us got this wrong. I think we looked at the transfers thinking that they were going to at least make a little bit of an improvement from their poor 8th place finish of the season before. They finished 15th. I mean, 15th in the table, guys. They could have finished as low as 17th if they didn't get a good result at the end of the season against Aston Villa, which we learnt in the end was full of controversies. So Manchester United, to even finish 15th, is a little bit papering over for how low they could have finished. Only just cracked over 40 points at the end of the season. 42 points that they got in a 38-game season is appalling, to say the least. And it can't get any worse than this for Manchester United. No European football either. So while Spurs actually finished even more embarrassingly low for Manchester United, they've at least got the best competition or European competition, the Champions League, to look forward to for next year. Whilst Manchester United, they've got no competitions at all. Off the field stuff are proving to be really, really affecting, I think, everything within Manchester United at the moment. There needs to be some form of unity, and there needs to be some plan in place to not only save the costs, because I do believe for a fact that Manchester United are struggling with costs at the moment. I think certainly with their underperforming over the years, I can understand. But I think some decisions are being made without considering the impact that they're having on other important stakeholders. So Manchester United strategically need to think very, very carefully about what they need to be doing, or what sort of strategic business decisions that they've got to be doing regarding the summer period to try and ensure that, for one, more stakeholders and shareholders are happy with what they're seeing, but for two, that they can actually improve their results on the pitch, that they can actually improve their wealth that way. So some very tough decisions going on with Manchester United. I certainly wouldn't want to be a director there at the moment. It's going to be a tough one to try and steer them away from this rot, because it is absolutely just full of rotten. It's rotten to the core, Manchester United at the moment, with players overpaid, players underperforming, players probably wanting to leave as well, with a manager that doesn't have players that can work to his system. There's certainly a lot that needs to be overrun. Made it to 6th place, and this one is certainly a bittersweet one, because I would have loved to see Aston Villa gain Champions League football again. They've had an amazing run in the Champions League to get knocked out in the quarterfinals by potentially the eventual winners, PSG. It was an absolutely unbelievable season for Aston Villa and Unai Emery, but it did affect their league form, and in the end, they finished 2 places lower in 6th place. And in the end, that actually only got them Europa League football, and they were 1 place off Aston Villa for getting Champions League football again. In my predictions point of view, it's a correct prediction, so I am taking it. But I certainly would not have predicted it to go to the final day and for it to be denied in controversial circumstances. Let me know what you think of the decision in the comments down below. I think certainly the decision would have certainly been made fairer if Bramwell didn't blow his whistle, before the ball went into the net. Does there need to be a rule consideration change with that? Does that, warrant a review system where they can overrun decisions with the whistle being blown? Is that really going to negatively impact the integrity of the game when you've got incompetence refereeing? Those are the sorts of questions you've got to be asking for the Referees Association for next season, because that's really what the argument is, that their views are integral and they should be protected. But right now, we've seen so much incompetency over the coming weeks now, and I think that certainly now needs to be put into question. That human error is something that is just appearing more and more frequently, despite the fact that there's a system that should be eradicating most of those problems. So an annoying one for Aston Villa in their league position, but it has been, whilst there has been some bad, it's ended on a sour note, their league form, they've had some good stuff with it as well, with them doing so well in the Champions League as well. Do not scratch your eyes, guys. This is actually 2 correct predictions in a row. I predicted Newcastle to finish in 5th place, and they did. Now, this at the time was me predicting that Newcastle were just going to miss out on Champions League football. Obviously, that's not the case because of how the European teams or the English teams did in European stages. We actually had 5th place as an additional Champions League place. So my reasoning and my justification of the position is a little bit skewed in that front. But, again, it's a really, really good season for Newcastle. Not only for the fact that they got Champions League football, they've won a trophy as well. Absolutely unbelievable. We've been saying it's been a year of the underdogs, with Newcastle getting their first trophy in over 70 years, Crystal Palace getting their first major trophy in their lifetimes. It's been an absolutely incredible season. And I'm excited for Newcastle that they're going to have a time where Derby returning for next season. They've got Sunderland now to contend with. I think that's going to make things interesting in that front. I'm happy for Newcastle that they've returned to Champions League. I've really been impressed with the likes of Guimaraes, their captain again, just leading things. Isak has had an incredible season as striker. Ended up being the 2nd top goal scorer as well. Will he move to someone like an Arsenal or someone else in the Premier League or someone, with a European pedigree? Who knows? But certainly Newcastle now in Champions League, I think they've got a stronger chance of retaining those players in the squad. And I think it's going to be a major loss if they do lose some of the players of their squad. You can see how well they work together, and you saw in that Carabao Cup final how well they can work. It was all going so well until Tottenham Hotspur had to appear. So there we go, guys. This is my worst prediction, not only for this table, but I think in all of my years doing Premier League predictions, I don't think I've ever got a team in the Premier League wrong by 13 places. And that has what's happened with Tottenham Hotspur. In my defence, Spurs were, I think, very unfortunate to not finish top 4 last season. And there was certainly so much promise with Spurs with how things were running with Ange Postecoglou. What we saw this season is that their squad was decimated by injuries. Likewise, Manchester United, the balance of Europa League and the Premier League really heavily affected the frequency of those injuries and just the personnel that they were able to have available. There were some games where I was really shocked how small of a bench, of a low quality bench that Spurs had. And it does shock me that actually their squad was decimated as quickly as it was. So a need for quality and depth is needed for Spurs. But again, we were speaking about the underdogs, and I'm going to throw Spurs in that category. It is their first trophy, Spurs, for over 17 years for winning the Europa League. Now, it would have been unbearable if Spurs got Champions League and Chelsea didn't. But now the fact that Chelsea and Spurs still have Champions League together, it does feel like that it's back to the old days with both of those London clubs getting Champions League with Arsenal as well, actually. So that's going to make things very, very exciting as well. So, yeah, 4th place. I'm not, I am mad about that decision. I think I certainly should have put Spurs quite a fair bit lower, honestly. I think I was just a little bit overconfident with how Postecoglou was going to do. I certainly did not foreshadow any of the injuries that they were going to have. But yeah, this has been a really bad season. 1 place above relegation, 17th for Spurs. I would not have predicted that, but I don't think anyone would have, honestly. So yeah, what a terrible prediction that is. But luckily, I'm not the only one. Let me know where you predicted Spurs in the comments down below. I'll be interested to see if I really, really just was overconfident with their season. Now made it to the top 3, and yes, I predicted Liverpool to finish 3rd rather than 1st. I think a bit of an arrogance on my part, thinking that Slot is probably not going to be the right personnel type of manager to get Liverpool to win the title, but it made sense with the fact that actually Slot came in, didn't tinker around with the squad barely at all, just allowed the squad to play in the way that they wanted to, and I think more or less I just didn't see the absolute downturn of Manchester City this season. So I think that was part of my errors, but I still predicted Arsenal to finish above them, where in the end Liverpool did finish 10 points above Arsenal. Could have finished a lot more points higher than Arsenal had they not been on the beach in the past 5 or 6 games since they confirmed the Premier League title, but it has been one of the earliest Premier League title confirmations for quite some time, actually. So that did make that part of this season a little bit underwhelming, especially as well with the bottom 3 being the recent 3 that got promoted from the Championship. But the race for Europe is really what sold this season, and just from the unbelievable domestic wins that the other English teams managed to achieve as well. But yeah, Liverpool wrong by 2 places. Obviously, no Alexander-Arnold, but they're thinking ahead already to next season, thinking of signing Fabian Wirtz from Bayer Leverkusen and thinking of getting more players in. So I like Liverpool. I like the fact that they're already making a statement of intent and they want to dominate. And I don't blame them. They've now matched Manchester United's 20 titles. If things go right for them, I think they could start thinking about overtaking Manchester United, because certainly Manchester United are not going to be winning a title anytime soon. So here's the last team I correctly predicted, Arsenal. I predicted them to finish second, and they did. Now, how do Arsenal fans find this season? If I do have Arsenal fans watching this video, let me know if your thoughts of the season in the comments down below. It's no trophies again from Arsenal and Mikel Arteta's point of view. 10 points off the title, which honestly does give him a little bit more grace than probably they should be feeling, because Liverpool did win the title very, very early on. And the reason that they actually close to 10 points was for the fact that Liverpool basically didn't turn up for the past 5 games or so. And Arsenal still, to be fair to them, still wanted to try and chug along and really keep the season competitive for themselves. So, yeah, second place, Arsenal. I think they're now starting to establish that they're going to be the team more likely to challenge for the title, but there just seems to be something that's missing. It's whether it's just this ruthlessness. They haven't got, I would say, a high quality or Premier League winning striker in their squad. I don't think you can rely on Kai Havertz for goals. I really can't. After seeing him in Chelsea, you certainly can't rely on Kai Havertz for goals. So they need a striker, Arsenal, and I think that will be sort of the player that they'll be wanting to try and get, just to get that killer instinct and to kill games off. That's really what's let them down. They've been competitive for most games. They've not really been outclassed too many times this season, Arsenal, but they've just not been able to kill teams off. So they know exactly what they need to do. If they have a crazy transfer window, maybe this could be an opportunity for Arsenal to take that one step beyond and to get a Premier League title finally. Then, of course, I predicted Manchester City to win the title, and they didn't in the end. They finished third. 71 points I actually think they got in the end, and certainly way below the standards that we're used to with Manchester City. And we did see a Manchester City side that were heavily exposed with the absence of Rodri for most of the season. He got injured, I believe, against Arsenal, and he was basically out for 6 or 7 months of this season. And Pep Guardiola just could not find a way to find the personnel in the squad to replace that influence on the game. So not only was he good enough to try and break down the opposition, but he was able to find, the good, flurries of attacks to link things up. And ultimately, Manchester City just fell short. Actually, I would dare say again, not scoring as many goals as they have been as well. Haaland was injured for quite a fair bit on and off in this season. Only finished third top goal scorer. It was actually Mo Salah that finished the top goal scorer in the end of the season. I certainly think the likes of Omar Mamouche is going to be a very big player for Manchester City with years to come. Kevin De Bruyne, of course, has now leaving Manchester City, played his final game yesterday for Manchester City. What a career he has had. Will they need to try and invest for someone to replace him? Potentially. But I do think what we're seeing with Manchester City now, they're now slowly but surely starting to ship across the players who are now starting to, not quite show the same level of quality, who are a little bit older. Pep's already thinking that they're trying to reinvest into some younger players. I think he's already threatened to actually leave if he is not back in the transfer window. He can see that lots of work is going to be needed for Manchester City to get back to the top. But if there's any side who I do back to do that, it would be Manchester City. They just know what they're doing in a recruitment point of view. So guys, that is my final table. I mean, what do you think of it? So, in terms of the total amount of points I picked up, so, as always, guys, what I do is that I count with how many places I got out by, and in the end, I add up all together to get to a final points tally. I ended up, I believe, looking at the amount of points, 76 points. It's not a great one for me. I like to think last season I did better than that. So certainly a lot of work is going to be needed. To get 3 correct teams is not too bad from me, but Brentford was a big regret. Of course, Manchester United and Spurs, I think, are going to be 2 teams that everyone's going to get wrong, but I certainly could have done a better job with Brentford. Bournemouth, I could have done better. Forest, I argue, I think a lot of us are going to get wrong as well. But yeah, Chelsea and West Ham as well. So I would say the teams I should have done a little bit better on are West Ham, Chelsea, Brentford, and I'd say Bournemouth as well. So those 4 teams that are the teams that cost me. And I think the other sides I've got heavily wrong. I think everyone would have got wrong anyway. So guys, that wraps it up. Quite a long video, but I just wanted to cover through all of the Premier League, table reactions. And I wanted to share all of my thoughts. But if you thought we were leaving, I'm going to be reading out some comments in terms of that video as well. And I'm going to be reacting to what you guys have also said in terms of the Premier League table predictions as well. I'll read managers first. So looking at this, he has got basically the correct bottom 3, but in the wrong order. Brentford to be low down in 17th is not quite right. Everton and Forest are not right. Wolves close, not quite. Bournemouth not quite. Brighton a bit wrong. 11th Fulham, he got spot on, so very annoyed with that one because I was so close with Fulham. West Ham not quite. Crystal Palace close, not quite. Newcastle and Aston Villa not far off, not right. And then, yeah, Spurs and Man United way out. But Chelsea 4th, he got correct. Liverpool, of course, and Man City needed to be swapped around. And Arsenal 2nd. So, pretty much, yeah, 3 correct positions, just like me. And actually similar calls as well. If we go for Tom now, he went for also the same promoted 3 to go back down. Leicester, Southampton, Ipswich. So perhaps I was feeling a little bit blinded with rose-tinted glasses to get Ipswich to stay up. I think that's what I'm seeing now. But again, in the wrong order, actually, as well. Brentford, 17th. So it seems I'm not the only one that had doubts over Brentford now. But Forest is slow down to 16th. It's not great. Wolves is quite close. Everton's pretty close. Fulham's close. Crystal Palace 12th is correct, so well done. 11th Newcastle's quite an interesting call. Brighton 10th, close, not quite. West Ham and Bournemouth. So we got Bournemouth right, but West Ham is not quite right. Aston Villa and Chelsea a little bit off there. Manchester United 5th is certainly not right. Liverpool 4th, no. Spurs 3rd, wow. So that is 14 places out. Man City 2nd. So he predicted Man City to correctly not win. But unfortunately, he didn't get the correct team to win it. He went for Arsenal. So some interesting calls. But ultimately, 2 correct positions in that part. And then for Johnny, GSGN, he went for Leicester, Southampton and Brentford. So I'm glad I'm not the only one that predicted Ipswich to survive in the end. But yeah, Brentford was the go-to team for lots of us, clearly, that they were going to be down there. But we all underestimated for how Brentford were going to beat, clearly. Ipswich, 17th, of course, we know now that's not quite right. Nottingham Forest, 16th, not right. 15th, Everton, not far off. Fulham 14th, not far off. Brighton 13th, quite way off, actually. About 5 positions off. Wolves 12th, needed to push him down a little bit more. Bournemouth 11th, close, not quite. Palace 10th is close, not quite. West Ham 9th, a bit too high. Chelsea need to be pushed a bit higher. Newcastle need to be pushed higher as well. Manchester United way too high there, and 6th. They need to be down in 15th. Aston Villa 5th, very close, 1 place off. Spurs 4th, definitely off again, 13 places off. Liverpool 3rd and Man City 1st need to be swapped around, but Arsenal 2nd, so he managed to get a correct position in Arsenal in the end. So again, really interesting calls, but some interesting correlations and similarities with our predictions as well. Just like that, guys, we're concluding the 24-25 Premier League season and the 24-25 season as a whole, I think, for this channel. So if you guys enjoyed the 24-25 season, please smash the like button. It really does help the growth of this channel. If you can hit the subscribe button too, it really does help. And please share the channel too. All three of these things are really easy to do, and they really do help the growth of this channel. In terms of videos in this channel, I will be covering early bookies predictions soon. If I do have time to research transfer rumours, I will think about doing transfer videos if I've got the time to do so. There's certainly stuff I want to do, but there's also certainly some things that I'm probably not going to bother doing. But I will assess the amount of time that I have later on. But I certainly want to be keeping a close eye on things with how things develop. So, that wraps it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary for joining in this video. And as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.